All right, guys, for today's lesson, we're going to visit disordered desire in the Thomistic framework, habitus, and rightly ordered appetite, because we're not just trying to suppress a desire for the P-sites with more discipline or willpower. We have to understand that the desire for intimacy has a proper telos or a proper function with the way God designed and desires it to operate. And there are primary and secondary ends. The problem is with dependent-driven behaviors or vices, it allows us to short-circuit the purpose to receive a temporary benefit, causing a long-term consequence. If we're able to reclaim rightly ordered desire toward real intimacy in life, which doesn't just involve intimate relationships, then we're able to fulfill the primary and secondary functions of that particular faculty of intimacy in the rightly ordered way that leads to long-term joy and true benefit. So the pattern was not just relieving pressure. Every time it fired, it was craving character in the wrong direction. So this week essentially builds character in the right direction, because habitus works both ways. Virtue is built the same way that the vice was. So this is not a moral condemnation of what has been. It's an honest accounting of what character has been formed so the right character can be built from here. So the accounting exists so that the work is aimed correctly. So essentially, in number 2, the Thomistic framework for desire is regarding vice versus virtue. Vice is not just a bad behavior. It's a disordered disposition that becomes more natural with repetition. So the appetites, or the concupiscible passions, right? This is the function of desire. It can be ordered toward the right thing for the proper function of enticement, and it can be reordered back toward, let's say, false forms of pleasure that cause an aversion to the right things. So we need to flip that dynamic from aversion to the real things and desire toward the proper function. So the appetite was trained by every choice toward what it will reach for automatically the next time. So that is what habitus means. So how virtue forms in this sequence is we've been through the first fire, which is a decision. So the first time the pattern fired, it required deliberation. So the appetite presented it, the will chose it, and a real decision was made. Number 2 is the groove. So the repetition fires. After the repetition, the decision required less deliberation. So the appetite knew the path, and the will arrived with less resistance each time. So this is how disordered desire gets reordered back toward the correct form in just a second here. So habitus gets formed, which is an improper disposition. The appetite began moving toward the pattern before deliberation could engage, not a decision anymore, but a trained inclination. So the inverse is virtue builds the same way. Repeated acts of right desire train the appetite toward the right object or the highest good to fulfill the proper function. So habitus builds in both directions, and this is the leverage. So this is Aquinas on vice and virtue. You guys can pause the video here to go through these, but we go through habitus, vice, virtue, and disordered desire. So essentially, in this context, a stable disposition of the appetite is formed by repeated acts, that's habitus, and it can be trained toward vice or virtue. So this is exactly how disordered desire forms within the concupiscible appetite. So number 3 is the present moment character formation axis. What self has been built and what self needs to be built instead. So every mechanism chosen in the present moment is building a self, not just expressing a pattern that already exists, but actively constituting who you're becoming with each repetition. This is the most practically confronting section because it requires honest accounting without self-punishment. So pause here to go through the self that has been built through the repetition toward vice and the self that has been being built from here. So that would be the appetite being retrained through repeated acts of right desire toward the real good. So how the pattern shaped attention specifically in marriage, work, vocation, prayer, and God, and children, and presence is also listed here. What trained attention reaches for and what rightly ordered attention reaches for. So number 4 is the ordered desire map. Rightly ordered desire is not weaker than disordered desire. It is stronger because it's directed towards something real. So the shadow lover in the Carl Jung framework of the psyche reaches for the counterfeit of what the rightly ordered lover actually has access to. So this is how this looks in marriage and intimacy, God and prayer, vocation and work. And what's the somatic work that I want you guys to do this week to actually work through the disordered desire patterns within the physiological structure of the body? Well, go through the exercise of the bow, go through the exercises of the bioenergetic breathing, the hip work, the shaking or vibration, and the completion practice. So this allows us to exercise, recognize, and release chronic neurosomatic tensions associated with emotions and disordered desire as it forms in the body. As Carl Jung called the unconscious, these are the things that are running the pattern that makes it feel like it's on autopilot. And these are the physical practices that not only helped me 7 years ago, but have helped hundreds of my guys here actually work through the disorder desire at a physiological level and have the soul and psyche integration in these proper steps above here. So if you're in my school group, this document will be linked below. If you're not in my school group, the link to join will be down below in the video as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll be speaking very soon.